acknowledging political violence on both sides of the spectrum. That's not something we've heard from the president.
No, it's not something we've heard from the president. It is something that we did hear from Attorney General Pam Bondi in an interview with RPR Times this week, where she did appear to acknowledge political violence on both sides there. But to your point, Kira, it's not something coming directly from this White House or consistent with any of the comments that we've heard from Vice President J.D. Vance, for example, or Stephen Miller as well. So, yes, we did hear from Patel specifically on that. And there's also a number of other highlights as well from his testimony. He's being grilled on a number of things. Of course, he was questioned a lot by Democrats on what they believe is his lack of experience as an FBI agent. We heard him defend specifically in the Kirk investigation. But what's interesting in this hearing is the administration's handling of the Epstein files has really taken center stage here. This has been the majority of the questioning from the Democrats. So I think we will also hear more about that and whether plans to release any more of those files.
All right, Livia, Catherine, thanks, ladies. So pomp, pageantry, and politics. History overseas today as President Trump makes his second state visit to the UK. King Charles and the rest of the royal family rolling out all the pomp and circumstance to welcome the president and leader in modern times to be hosted by the British monarchy for two state visits, with the first coming during Trump's first term in 2019. The day set to culminate in a couple of hours with a lavish white tie state dinner at Windsor Castle. Join me now, foreign correspondent Maggie Rulli, who is in Windsor, also Royals contributor Robert Jobson, and former UK national security official Steve Hill. So, Maggie, you're in Windsor. You might as well be added to the table there. Tell us more about Trump's.
Thank you. Why aren't you making this guest list, Kira? You know, we talk about pomp and circumstance so much when we talk royals, Kira, but today we have witnessed unprecedented pomp and circumstance. So you already listed one first, the fact that President Trump is the first U.S. president to have two state visits here in the U.K. He's also the first U.S. president to have a carriage ride through Windsor. And also, he was treated to the largest military ceremony ever for a visiting foreign leader in living memory. You know, being here, it was incredible to witness the extent the royal family in the UK has gone to really make this visit unique and a first of its kind. And this is just leading up to this point, Kira. You know, in some ways, everything we've seen so far has just been a prelude to the big event tonight, the state dinner. Now, this visit, the state dinner, this is something that takes months, up to a year of planning. Every detail is so meticulously thought through. A background story to every detail, a motive to every detail. When it comes to this dinner in particular, if I said this way, this is one of the longest tables in Britain. It's going to be set tonight with some of the most powerful people in the world. It'll be set so perfectly, around 1,000 glasses, all that have been hand washed. They actually bring a ruler in to measure, to make sure that all the chairs are the exact same distance apart. All the plates are the exact same distance apart. We'll hear speeches from both the president and the king. So it is quite an event here that is happening here tonight.
Oh, including all the gifts that are being given. We'll have to talk about that. Robert, a second in unprecedented modern times. Talk to us about the of President's trip.
Hugely significant, Kira. I mean, this is not only the second state visit for President Trump. There's only been two other U.S. presidents, President Obama and George W. Bush, who've got the state visit level. And that shows you how much has been put on this by the British government, how important that special relationship is. The other visits by President Reagan, even John F. Kennedy, they were lower level, working and official visits. They had some of the ceremony, but nowhere near the ceremony and the pomp and circumstance we've seen surrounding this visit. I'm intrigued to see not only what's going to be served up at this banquet, but also the speeches that are going to be made both by the president and by the king tonight, because in previous visits when the king has been to France and to Germany, he's raised big issues from NATO to the Ukraine war. So these things could come up in the speeches. A lot of the speeches will be focused, I think, on the relationship between Britain and the things from the Beatles. But the the actual common denominators between the two countries. But it has been a hugely successful and significant visit. It's at Windsor Castle, 1,000 years of history. And there's been a lot of, I think, for President Trump, something that's been really quite special, and also laying that floral tribute to the late Queen too, very important.
So, Steve, let me get you to weigh in on what you out of the political discussions when the president actually sits down with Keir Starmer, the UK.
Yeah, I mean, the real business is tomorrow. First and foremost, we will move from it being a celebration of the past to a forward-looking, this technology partnership with over 10 billion of US tech company investment into the UK, the talks on trade, that will be top of the agenda. Secondly, there will be foreign policy, pressing President Trump to perhaps take a tougher line on President drones that went into Poland last week, on Gaza, press fire, on Iran, trying to press for nuclear negotiations, and also sharing probably the approach that we might both have towards China. But there will also be some nervousness. I think the press conference will be the element that they will be most nervous about, where the journalists will try to raise the domestic UK issues, Epstein and other issues that
Well, we'll be following every part of it, that's for sure. Steve Hill, Maggie Rulli, Robert Thompson, great to see all three of you. Straight ahead, your mortgage, your credit card, your money. Yeah, the Fed's expected to cut interest rates next hour. Keep it here.
It's just like our new house. I hope you have an American Home Shield warranty. Leaky toilet? Fixed. Oven beyond repair? If AHS can't fix your covered item, they'll replace it, no matter at AHS.com.
Get back to life. The Joint for Practic.
Okay, eBay.
eBay. Things people love.
Variety is the pumpkin spice of life. So try Cece's new pumpkin spice cinnamon rolls.
It's not having access to 1 million industrial-grade products that's so amazing. It's the feeling of knowing you'll find the one you need. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Only on Hulu.
In just under an hour, the Fed is expected to cut interest rates for the first time since December. This high-stakes announcement comes amid an intense pressure campaign from President Trump, who's been going after Fed Chair Jerome Powell for months for not being quick enough to cut rates. Our Elizabeth Schulze is at the Fed here in D.C., joins me along with business correspondent Alexis Christoforous. So, Elizabeth, you know, these interest rate cuts will be the first since December. So let's talk about why now, how political is this versus a solid economic decision?
And Kira, your question says so much about this extraordinary moment we're in that the Fed has become really embroiled in politics as President Trump has called for rate cuts. What the Fed allude to when he talks to reporters after that. They've said they are independent of politics, and what they're really looking at when they look at this rate cut and why now for the first time in 9 months, Kira, it's because of the jobs market. We have seen a significant slowdown in the jobs market. The Fed expects that by lowering the cost of borrowing money, that makes it cheaper for businesses to take out loans to hire people and for consumers to borrow money too. And you can see that. Take a look at more now rates at you're approaching 6%. That makes it easier if you're trying to refinance, take out a loan. The other place where consumers or a household might see this, Kira, take a look at credit cards. We are still at near record highs for credit card interest rates, 20%. And that interest really adds up. If you have a $5,000 balance, you're going to be paying, if you just make minimum payments, up to $7,000 in interest. So this could be relief for consumers if it is the beginning of a rate cutting cycle. A lot of hopes for that here.
Well, Alexis, what do these cuts say about the state of economy?
You know, Kira,
time for the Federal Reserve. They're really going to have to thread the needle here because what they're trying to do is balance two big worries. One is inflation is creeping up. How much further it's going to go and get moved further away from the Fed's 2% target. It now sits at 2.9%. And remember, we are in a tariff environment, right? So what will the tariffs do to consumer prices going forward? And as Elizabeth just talked about, we're seeing some warning signs in the job market. It's really slowing down. Just to give you a quick figure, the number of people applying for first-time unemployment benefits 4-year high. So the Fed has a decision to make. Do they cut interest rates aggressively and risk inflation spiking, or do they move too slowly to cut interest rates and then have a job market that could get much worse and possibly spark a recession?
All right. Lots going to happen within the next hour or so. We'll be talking again, ladies. Thank you, Elizabeth and Alexis. Straight ahead, filling up and running for cover. What happened?